Hey everybody, I got one more thing to bring up on putting together one of these desktop computers, and that is I had a devil of a time with this one activating Windows. And so I thought, hey, maybe it's worth giving you some of what my experience was. In order to do this, you need to have a retail license of like Windows 10 or 11. The earlier versions, like I had Windows 8 originally, it had, the alphanumeric that was about that long, that, a license key you had to plug in. And that's how I started, but then they upgraded that license key to what they call the digital license, and it ties in with your Microsoft account. And so, first of all, before you build one of these dudes, you need to go and take your old computer and make sure it's registered with your Microsoft account. You log on to your Microsoft account on a web page and see that the old computer is there and present and linked to your account. And there's some commands to be able to hook one of them up. Then you go install your new hardware. And then when you come back, you're supposed to be able to transfer the license. Now again, this only works with a retail license. If you get like my laptop, or if you get a factory-built computer that comes with Windows when you buy it, those are generally OEM licenses, original equipment manufacturer's license, and those aren't transferable from machine to machine. But if you build your own machine, or you go out to the store and you buy a retail license and bring it back and load it on your computer, even if it was your laptop, if you purchased the license, and I did that before. My wife had a laptop that had Windows 7, and when Windows 8 came out, I went out and bought a retail license and upgraded her machine. So then that license is transferable. Anyway, got to have a retail license, but the retail licenses these days, for Windows 10 at least, and I expect 11 is the same, I haven't checked it out, the retail ones are transferable. The original equipment, or in the olden days there were like what they called builder's licenses. I think those are pretty much gone. But anyway, retail's transferable. So you install your new hardware. When you go back and connect to the internet, it comes back and it says you can go look. It'll say it's not activated. You go into settings to the activation page, and it'll say hardware has changed. You need to activate. And there's a way to do that. Well, on this one, it didn't work. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I used the troubleshooter, but it wouldn't show the computer that I was on or the computer that I came from. And it also couldn't display any phone numbers. So this is what the activation screen looks like. You go into the settings page, and you go to update and security, and there's one down here that says activation, and then this is the activation page. And the computer I'm working on here is already activated, so the link isn't there. But when I was trying to get this one to go, this one had a troubleshooter link, and so you hit the troubleshooter link and it would go through, but it kept coming back and saying, bringing back computers that weren't right for my account. And if you said, I'm in trouble, it would take you onto a page where you could put in your phone number and they would call you back. So when I went through the troubleshooter, it couldn't display the correct computer. It didn't have the one associated that I should be working on. And it wouldn't go to, there's supposed to be a page that will give you regionally specific phone numbers to call Microsoft and ask about it. Well, that didn't work either. But if I went online, both my old motherboard and my new one were both showing in my Microsoft account. They were both there, but just for some reason, it wasn't talking to the troubleshooter. I did a bunch of I'm going to call it the normal things that you would do on a Windows installation, and I ran check disk. This one was a little more complicated because it had been a dual boot system with XP, and I went and eliminated XP and made it Windows 10 across the whole drive, which had its own set of difficulties, but that's behind me. So it was just Windows 10. It should have activated. You would have thought it was good. But to make sure, I went through and did a thorough check disk. I did the system file scan, Windows file scan, SFC, system file check, SFC /scan now. Then I went around and ran the DISM tool, which looks at your entire Windows installation and checks the image to make sure it's correct. And I actually ran SFC and DISM 2 or 3 times in succession because they did find some things that needed to be cleaned up, and it did it. But you go back to the troubleshooter and it was the same thing. I did a bunch of internet search, and there are a number of commands under a program called SLUIE, S-L-U-I-E-X-E, and they have a number of different commands you can run, but it is like the activation manager. And I think in principle you would use that one if you can't get an internet connection, and it would help you with with it. And there's a command SLUI /4 that should bring up something for phone call-in activation. Well, that didn't work at all. When I typed that in, it went out to lunch and never did anything. And the way you use that is you do like a Windows key and an R. You want to bring up this box that says run and type in SLUI4 with the space in it. And you hit OK, and like I say, it just wouldn't do anything. And I could put it into a command prompt window. It didn't matter. Nothing worked. If it did work, this is the box that it's supposed to bring up for you. And you would call in to the toll-free number. And in the center of the screen, there's a string of numbers, which is your installation ID, that you would give them those numbers on the phone. And it should come back with a confirmation ID that would let you activate. But I couldn't get to this. This wasn't working. I went through a bunch of steps. First of all, I decided to use if I went through the troubleshooter and I kept going long enough, it said, put in your phone number and we'll call you back. Well, I did that, and I waited a couple of days, and nothing happened. So I hunted in my Microsoft account and found that somebody had gone in. Maybe they tried to call me and I missed it. I don't know. But they said everything was good, and they closed out the trouble ticket. I'm like, dang. So I tried it a second time. This was several days later. I put in my number, hit go. Now, the first time I tried it was on a weekend, which was probably bad, but it was where I was. So this time I did it on a weekday, about 9 o'clock in the evening, and I had a call back within an hour. We went through a number of things. He asked me to check and go through the troubleshooter, and it was kind of like first level support, and the things he did for me didn't work. So he said, okay, I'll send you to next level support. We'll get a tech on. And I sat on the line for about a half an hour, and then suddenly the line went dead. So I thought, oh, shucks. Well, I hung around for a while, figuring I still might get a call back, but around 11:30, I decided it was time to go to bed. This is 11:30 at night. And I'm sound asleep, and the phone rings. It's about 12:15, midnight. And it was a second level tech calling me back. And she offered to call me back in the morning, and I said, no, I'm awake. Let's go down and let's work on the machine. So we went down to the machine, and she asked me a bunch of questions like, where did you get the license? How did you get it? And I kind of gave her it was a Windows 8. It got upgraded. I kind of gave her some history, explained that, everything was in my Microsoft account, but the troubleshooter just wouldn't let me move the license. It wasn't giving me the right options. So she asked for remote control of the machine. She got control of my desktop. The first thing she did was she went in and found a service called SPP, or Software Protection. This one right here, I believe it was, because she was going really fast. For some reason, the Software Protection service in Windows was turned off, and that service is what runs the activation system, and is probably why the SLUI program wasn't doing anything, because the service it was interfacing with wasn't working. So then she went to a Microsoft website. I mean, she was very effective. It took her just a couple of minutes. She went to a Microsoft website, copied off a long script, dropped it into my machine in the command prompt, hit go, and the machine ran for 2 or 3 minutes, and all of a sudden came back and said, it's activated, it's all good. And she spent a few minutes with me. We went through the machine, just through a few different things, and made sure everything was working and up, and we were good to go. But I've never had to, in as many years as I've been doing this is the first time I've ever had to actually talk to somebody at Microsoft outside of the normal activation. Some years ago, I had to use that phone activation and call in to fix one. But this is the first time I've ever had to have a call back, and I have to say, while it was a little difficult, getting the call back and waiting for it and waking up in the middle of the night, the second level tech, she really knew what she was doing. She had it fixed about like that. And I've been off and going, and it's all good. So I'll say is if you ever get into that problem, make sure those things work. And if you have to get the call back, hey, it worked for me. So hope that helps. That's all for now.